Hi, welcome to our CEJA overview, and thank you for having an interest in learning about Illinois' action in response to climate change. And I'm Laura Davis, one of the issue specialists with climate and energy, in addition to Bill Koehl, and we're happy to have you. And as the federal government has pulled away from positive action to address the climate crisis, the action has moved across the country to the states. So Clean Energy Jobs Act, also known as CEJA, is a grassroots bill that involves over 200 organizations. It is supported by 82% of people in Illinois, including all geographic areas and political parties. Two of the goals of CEJA are to move Illinois to 100% renewable by 2050 and cut carbon from the power sector by 2030. It is a large bill. It's over 800 pages, and it's very comprehensive, including 9 sections. What we plan to do today in an hour is to share a video that gives an overview of CEJA. That's going to take about 30 minutes. And then we have 2 speakers that will address several issues with CEJA and answer questions. Jessica Beverly from the Sierra Club and Andrew Rehn from Prairie Rivers Network. Each presenter is going to present slides, and then we're going to allow about 15-20 minutes for your questions at the end. And we ask you that you please put your questions in the chat. We do have permission from our presenters to record this event, and we will make it available on the League of Women Voters Illinois website. Also, if anyone is interested in participating in Illinois Jobs Coalition Virtual Lobby Day on November 12th, where we will all rally at noon, we will have a sign-up sheet where you can put your information, and we do invite you to participate. So thank you everyone for attending, and let's get started.
Today we are talking about the Clean Energy Jobs Act. My name is Andrew Barbeau with the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition, and I want to talk to you about a piece of legislation that's moving its way through Springfield that seeks to put Illinois on a path to 100% renewable energy by 2050, achieve a carbon-free power sector by 2030, reduce pollution from the transportation sector, and, at its core, center jobs and equity at the heart of a clean energy future. This may sound a little different because it is. The Clean Energy Jobs Act was developed through a bottom-up process that involved communities across Illinois through a series of 100 Listen, Lead, Share events. It is an inspiring mobilization of activists and leaders calling for climate action and a just and equitable clean energy future. But taking on climate is not easy. Even when there is a will to act, there is difficulty getting action done. Many people, good people, thoughtful and caring people, still see climate as a fight that is just too big. That is a problem for far-sighted treaties and faraway lands, or an issue that politicians and bureaucrats in D.C. must decide. But I've got news for you. We create more carbon pollution here in the Midwest than Canada, Mexico, and Australia combined. If we were a country, the Midwest would be the 5th largest polluting country in the world, ahead of Japan and nipping on the heels of Russia. This is the electricity we use, the cars we drive, the buildings we live in. Guess what? These are all things we have the power to change right here in Illinois. We don't need to wait for DC to change or Trump to have a change of heart. We can take action right here, today. But still the question we get asked in Springfield is, why now? First of all, climate change simply will not wait. And action on climate cannot wait. July 2019, just this past July, was the hottest month in history. And this summer, all 102 counties in Illinois were declared agriculture disaster areas due to extreme weather. We can't afford to keep kicking the can down the road. But there are also issues that affect our pocketbook. Currently, there are Trump appointees in D.C. that are poised to change electricity market rules to prop up dirty fossil fuels, which will result in Illinois customers paying more for their electric bills, as much as $860 million a year for dirty energy that we don't use and we don't need. We are also facing the prospects of a major bust in the renewable energy market in Illinois. Just a few years ago, we passed a landmark piece of legislation in Illinois called the Future Energy Jobs Act, which kick-started the renewable energy industry and for the first time created incentives for rooftop solar, community solar, large-scale solar, and expanded energy efficiency. But that's about to all come to a screeching halt. The programs that we created in that landmark bill are now drying up, but we are still falling far short of even our existing goals and no opportunity to go further. If we do nothing, we will have a renewable energy bust until 2024, leaving all these new jobs and businesses that have been created hanging out to dry. And finally, there are communities across central and southern Illinois that are looking at the holiday season with a little fear about what comes next. Vistra, which owns several coal plants throughout Illinois, announced that it was closing 4 coal plants in central and southern Illinois, in the communities of Coffeen, Hennepin, Havana, and Canton. The question now becomes, when those plants leave those communities, how do we ensure that those communities stay strong and grow? Some of it is about ensuring that their schools or police districts have enough resources, but it's also about helping define a new economic future for the communities where they can thrive and grow and create new careers and attract businesses and people to their town. Any of these issues would be enough to drive action by themselves, but all 4 of them together create an opportunity to think a little differently about our energy policy and climate policy in the state. In order to put Illinois on a path to 100% renewable energy in a just and equitable way, we need to look at this in a comprehensive way. You can't invest in new renewable energy development without thinking about how that investment can build wealth and equity in low-income communities, or help address grid needs in central and southern Illinois as coal plants begin to close. When you start to reduce pollution from the transportation sector, you have to think about how all those new electric vehicles impact the electric sector as well. That's both on the emission side and on the grid side. The Clean Energy Jobs Act is that comprehensive bill. It will put jobs and equity at the center of a clean energy future. It will put Illinois on a path to 100% renewable energy. It will save consumers money through capacity market reform. It will reduce consumer energy bills through energy efficiency. It will support fossil fuel workers and communities. It will reduce pollution from transportation. It will ensure utility accountability. And it will achieve a carbon-free power sector in Illinois by 2030. But first, let's talk about jobs and equity. Jobs and equity are at the heart of the Clean Energy Jobs Act. In community conversations around the state, this was an issue brought up over and over again, that the growing clean energy economy in Illinois can be a vehicle for expanding equitable access to quality jobs, economic opportunities, and wealth creation. The Clean Energy Jobs Act will result in a direct investment of $2 billion in low-income and environmental justice communities through 2030. That's through several essential pieces. First, this will create an exciting new effort called the Clean Jobs Workforce Hubs, a consortium of career pipelines that support people who enter the clean energy workforce, from training and apprenticeship programs to stipends and career counseling. Further, the Clean Energy Jobs Act will greatly expand Solar for All to ensure that all of Illinois can benefit from the growing clean energy economy. Next, the cheapest form of energy is the energy we don't use. So CEJA expands energy efficiency for low-income customers, focused on home retrofits, health and safety improvements, and long-lasting investments. These are things that save customers money, not just in 1 year, but for years to come. We also want to put the community back in community solar, ensuring that at least 25% of all community solar to be organized and directly benefiting the communities they are serving. Finally, as the Clean Energy Jobs Act seeks to rapidly expand electric vehicles throughout the state, we want to ensure that everyone has access to the electrification economy, especially in communities where car ownership is not an option. The EV Access for All program will provide incentives for low-income vehicle rebates, as well as EV car sharing programs and electric shuttle programs to serve transit deserts. All told, this $2 billion direct investment in low-income and environmental justice communities will allow us to lift people up and allow everybody to share in the clean energy future. The Clean Energy Jobs Act sets a bold but achievable goal to put Illinois on a path to 100% renewable energy by 2050. While there are clearly questions about how are we going to do that from the years 2040 to 2050, we do know for certain what we can and must do now. We can get to 46% renewable energy by 2030, 50% by the year after that, and we know how to get there. We get there through an immediate acceleration of renewable energy development to build 16,500 megawatts of new solar and 7,300 megawatts of new wind by 2030. This is enough to power more than 4 million homes. The recent success of the Future Energy Jobs Act has led to the creation of thousands of jobs and tens of thousands of renewable energy projects getting built around the state. But that risks coming to a halt. The Illinois Power Agency says that they're out of money for building more renewable energy until possibly 2024. That means we will be stuck at 8% renewable energy and fall far short of even current law, which requires us to achieve 25% renewables by 2025. We know what needs to be done. So, we will increase our renewable energy targets to create a steady growth in renewables over the next 10 years to get to our new targets. We will need to increase the budget for renewable energy to account for this growth. But we also can use savings from other parts of the bill, such as capacity market reform, to offset these additional costs so customers don't see the rate impacts. The questions here are about priorities, where we want to choose to spend the money that we have in our electric bill. As we develop more renewables, we also need to make the process run smoother. That means improvements to the state's incentive program for renewable energy called the Adjustable Block Program, or Illinois Shines, as well as policies to make interconnection easier for renewable companies. It also means creating more certainty and protections for customers that invest in their own renewable energy and to fix net metering timelines to create certainty and open doors to community-focused community solar projects. As the state pursues its energy and environmental goals to reduce pollution, expand new opportunity, and ensure affordable energy, it must also look at some of the existing structures that push back against those goals. And that goes to the question of priorities. How we spend money on our electric bill says a lot about our priorities. One of those areas is called capacity markets. Capacity now makes up 20% of your electric bill. All told, that's $1.7 billion a year paid by consumers in Northern Illinois. The capacity market in our region was created about 10 years ago when we were in a world of growing electricity use, and the grid operators were looking for a way to incentivize new power plants being built. They created a market that would buy the promise that a power plant would be running at the highest peak times of electricity usage in a year, typically in the summer when it is hot and humid. The idea was to give power plants a fixed payment to ensure they would be around at those hours. However, because of widespread energy efficiency in homes, lighting, computers, and other equipment, electricity use is actually going down, and we have had way more power plants than we have needed. The world looks very different from 10 years ago, but the market never caught up with that. With electricity demand going down and more renewables being built at cheaper costs than ever before, wholesale energy prices have dropped year after year. That's good for consumers, yet older fossil fuel plants with their rising costs simply cannot compete on the wholesale market anymore. So they've turned to the capacity market to make up their lost profit. What used to be a simple market to ensure power plants stayed online during those top 5 hours a year has turned into a bailout bonanza for fossil fuel generators. They will make more than half of their revenue through the capacity market, making money while not running, incentivizing them to run and pollute more. The market is tipped in their favor. Right now, consumers in northern Illinois are paying more than $1 billion per year to bail out these coal and gas plants. Some in Illinois, in environmental justice communities like Waukegan, and some in other states. And that's poised to go even higher. Soon, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission will issue an order to further tip the scales toward fossil fuels in capacity markets. It will order a market redesign that would say that carbon-free resources, such as wind power, solar power, and nuclear power, will effectively be kicked out of the market, changing the bids of those resources so they can't compete. This rule comes at the request of the coal, gas, and oil industry, who believe that this is a way to nullify state support for things like renewable energy. But when you take all these supply resources out of a market and artificially inflate prices for fossil fuels, it means consumers will pay more. The current estimate is that consumers in northern Illinois will pay up to $864 million a year more under this new plan than what they pay today. Trump has long promised to save the coal industry. It is now clear that this will be on the backs of consumers in clean energy. The Clean Energy Jobs Act, however, does not walk away from this fight. It seeks to find a way to get out of the grips of this fossil fuel-focused capacity market and instead focus on new renewable energy development that focuses on achieving our state's energy, environmental, equity, and public health goals. It creates hundreds of millions of dollars a year in savings, not just from the threat of future costs, but actually savings as compared to today, to invest in Illinois' renewable energy future, jobs and equity, and pollution reduction strategies, all while still saving consumers money. It comes back to a question of priorities, how we want to choose to spend the money on our electric bills to achieve what we want to achieve. Energy efficiency should form the basis of any robust clean energy policy. It is the cheapest clean energy resource, and efficiency upgrades help customers manage their energy bills directly by reducing energy they need and indirectly by holding demand and prices down statewide. Energy efficiency employs almost 87,000 people in Illinois, more than any other clean energy sector, in a diverse range of jobs such as insulation installer, heating and air conditioning engineer, and a pipe fitter. The Clean Energy Jobs Act focuses on making Illinois a leader in energy efficiency in the electric and gas sectors. For gas utilities, the Clean Energy Jobs Act focuses on addressing the significant bill impacts consumers in Illinois will start to see in the coming years due to the recent ramp-up of gas utility spending, and focuses on reducing bills for the most vulnerable. It is expected that the benefits of these investments will save consumers $700 million per year. Again, the cheapest form of energy is the energy we don't use and don't need. How does it do that? Well, the bill requires gas utilities to achieve real energy savings, reducing gas use by 13.5% by 2035, focusing on savings that last over time. This would triple the energy savings of the current gas energy efficiency programs. The bill also requires that the utilities spend a minimum of 25% of their program dollars on low-income programs. for those least able to afford their gas bills. The program focuses on whole building investments that reduce heating needs. Half of all spending must be for these things that make a building more energy efficient, not just on appliances. Things such as insulation, air sealing, ventilation, advanced thermostats, and more. For electric utilities, the Clean Energy Jobs Act builds on the success of the Future Energy Jobs Act passed 3 years ago. It extends energy efficiency programs beyond 2030 so that utilities are still incentivized to get long-lasting energy savings. It also increases the amount of investment in low-income programs and ensures energy efficiency programs reach apartment buildings. The Clean Energy Jobs Act also dives into innovative ideas that support those least able to pay for retrofits and upgrades to their homes. The first such program is a health and safety fund, which would complement existing low-income programs and would address issues where energy efficiency contractors have to walk away from low-income home retrofit projects because they discover leaks, mold, asbestos, or other health and safety issues. When we find these issues in homes in our communities, the worst thing we can do is walk away. The second innovative program is the Equitable Energy Financing Program, which is a pay-as-you-save type of program that has proved successful in other states. It allows residents to finance energy improvements on their electric bill so that they can pay off the project investment on the same timetable they are getting the savings from it. Altogether, these investments in energy efficiency support new jobs, help us reach our climate goals, and reduce bills for consumers across the state. One of the core outputs of the Listen Lead Share events around the state was a strong desire to accelerate efforts to achieve a carbon-free power sector in Illinois. At the same time, however, community participants also discussed that it was important to stimulate the economic and environmental well-being of communities disproportionately impacted by the historical operation of and recent and planned closures of fossil fuel power plants. The Clean Energy Jobs Act does this in a parallel approach. First, the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency is empowered to develop and enforce limits on greenhouse gas emissions from Illinois power plants to achieve zero emissions by 2030. When doing so, the Illinois EPA would have to work with the Illinois Environmental Justice Commission to develop an environmental justice analysis and require mandatory emission reductions first from power plants impacting environmental justice communities. Those power plant owners would also be required to engage in stakeholder processes to proactively plan for retirement impacts on their communities and workers. Second, the Clean Energy Jobs Act creates a new framework for workers and communities called Energy Community Reinvestment. Energy Community Reinvestment targets new investments into Illinois communities and workers impacted by the closure of fossil fuel power plants and closed coal mines, and ensures that those responsible for the pollution are the ones who pay. To qualify for these energy community reinvestment funds, a community must first be designated as a clean energy empowerment zone, an effort undertaken by the state's Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity and an independent board. Eligible communities are environmental justice communities, communities impacted by the shift away from fossil fuels, and others as determined by the board. Communities, school districts, and police and fire departments are eligible for financial assistance from the fund to cover reduced property tax revenue or other community needs for a period of up to 5 years. Further, these clean energy empowerment zones are prioritized for renewable energy development, and businesses that locate in the zones or hire displaced workers are eligible for tax credits. The Clean Energy Jobs Act also directs support for fossil fuel power plant and coal mine workers, creating a Displaced Energy Workers Bill of Rights to ensure advance notice of plant closures, career services, financial planning services, and scholarships for displaced workers. The plant operators would also be required to provide new employment information, 1 year of health insurance, and protections for retirement accounts. The State Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity would have a responsibility as well, to support workers and drive new investments to communities. The fund raises approximately $200 million per year from polluters based on their share of pollution in the state, depositing money in a fund that is designed to be available after plants close. Funds from polluters are also used to support jobs and equity investments, including the Clean Jobs Workforce Hubs and the Clean Energy Entrepreneurship and Contractor Incubator. The transportation sector is now the leading source of carbon pollution in Illinois, responsible for roughly 1/3 of all carbon emissions. The Clean Energy Jobs Act has set forth an ambitious goal to remove the equivalent of 1 million gasoline and diesel-powered vehicles from our roads. The number of passenger, medium, and heavy-duty electric vehicles in Illinois could grow to approximately 1.2 million by 2030. But only if Illinois adopts a comprehensive suite of policies to encourage their growth. If managed appropriately, electric vehicle adoption will drastically reduce emissions from transportation and could save Illinois residents a cumulative $35 billion through reduced vehicle fueling and maintenance costs. In addition to better air quality and safer climate, Illinois residents that do not use electric vehicles also benefit from greater adoption through lower electric bills, resulting from the greater utilization of the electric grid during off-peak hours. And as the electric grid relies increasingly on renewable energy, the electricity used to charge electric vehicles will grow cleaner. However, any policy to support electric vehicles must ensure that the benefits of the electric vehicle economy go to everyone. Reducing pollution and improving public health are exponentially more impactful when done in communities already burdened by cumulative pollution impacts from cars, trucks, trains, industry, and other polluters. That's why the Clean Energy Jobs Act prioritizes supporting environmental justice communities, low-income communities, and communities where car ownership is not a viable option. In the legislation, beneficial electrification is broken into 3 main categories: EV access for all, public transit and fleets, and mass market adoption. The EV Access for All program directs at least $7.5 million a year to provide rebates for the purchase of electric vehicles for low-income residents, to create electric vehicle car sharing programs, to support electric shuttles, to serve transit deserts, and other innovative programs to support communities. We must ensure that all of Illinois has access to the benefit of electric vehicles. Next, the Clean Energy Jobs Act will support electrification of medium and heavy-duty vehicles that not only contribute to climate change, but their emissions have a significant impact on local air quality as well, particularly in communities near highways, truck and train yards, and industrial facilities. An average of $25 million per year in incentives for vehicle purchase and charging stations can not only help the Chicago Transit Authority reach its goal of electrifying its entire bus fleet, it can help PACE, Metra, Central and Southern Illinois transit agencies, city and county governments, school districts, school bus companies, and other fleets go electric. Investments in medium and heavy-duty vehicle electrification will prioritize investments in projects that reduce surface-level pollutants in low-income and environmental justice communities first. The third core investment by the Clean Energy Jobs Act in electric vehicles is to support mass market adoption. This includes public charging stations, workplace charging stations, fast charging stations along the highways, a rural charging station network, as well as help with home charging stations. While most of electric vehicle charging takes place at home or at work, having public charging stations can help build confidence and allow the private vehicle market to excel. Along with these investments, however, comes an expectation that the recipients of incentives for electric vehicles must also participate in programs that help avoid new costs to the grid that electric vehicles could bring. By shifting charging from evening times when energy use is high to overnight when energy use is low, we can save billions of dollars in grid investment costs. By shifting charging to times when more wind energy and solar energy are producing, we not only ensure the fuel for the vehicles are clean, we help support the integration of more renewable energy to the grid. Taken together, these investments will support the equivalent of hundreds of thousands of new electric vehicles on the road and improve the public health in communities most impacted by poor air quality and pollution. Altogether, the Clean Energy Jobs Act puts together the essential pieces of any comprehensive energy bill. It centers jobs and equity at the heart of a clean energy future. It puts Illinois on a path to 100% renewable energy. It reduces emissions from our transportation sector, and it gets us to a carbon-free power sector by 2030. To find out more about the Clean Energy Jobs Act and the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition, visit us online at www.ilcleanjobs.org. That's www.ilcleanjobs.org.
Okay, now I got it. It said I couldn't unmute. My host had to do it. Okay, well, anyway, as you can all see, it's a really comprehensive bill. And now we're going to hear from Jessica and Andrew. And please proceed.
Do you want to start off?
Sure. So we are going to talk a little bit about the Clean Energy Jobs Act, or we call CEJA. And I'm Jessica Beverly. I'm with the Sierra Club. Bill, did you want to go to the next slide? The Sierra Club's mission is to explore, enjoy, and protect the wild places of the earth. We are 130,000 plus Illinois members strong, and we have really been focused on the Clean Energy Jobs Act this year. We have many chapters. If you'd like to go on our website and get involved in your local chapter, we would appreciate it. And I will let Andrew talk about Prairie Rivers Network. Next slide.
Thanks. So I'm with Prairie Rivers Network. We are a much smaller nonprofit than the Sierra Club. We don't have nearly as many members, but our mission is to protect water, heal land, and inspire change. We're located in Champaign, at least that's where the office is. We're now located scattered throughout the state because everybody's working from home. But we're a small nonprofit of 10 folks, and we work on a variety of issues. And I work on our I originally worked on coal ash, which is a byproduct of burning coal, but then that brought me to working on clean energy as well. And so I've personally worked on a lot of the just transition, some of the equity parts of CEJA. So if you could go to the next slide. So the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition is it's this really cool thing that exists in Illinois. It's not a similar thing in many other states. It's sort of a group of environmental justice and faith-based organizations that have all come together to work on a clean energy jobs future for Illinois. It's been a really amazing coalition to be a part of, to see all of the different people that it brings together throughout the state to really work on legislation that will change our energy future, but also doing so in a really grassroots way. I mean, a lot of what the coalition does is really bottom up. So many meetings, so many discussions, so many committees and subcommittees, but that's what it has to be done to really get it to all, everything flow into one big piece of legislation. So if you go to the next slide. I know that Andrew Barbeau, who was the presenter of that video, different than Andrew me, talked a bit about this, but the Clean Energy Jobs Act is really grassroots in its origin. We did over 100 of these listen, lead, share events across the state. These were sort of community discussions located in towns everywhere. You saw a map in the video where we just talked with folks about what they saw as a clean energy future. And the 4 things that came out of it are 100% renewable by 2050. It's got to be a jobs focused thing. We need to be looking for jobs in the future. Carbon free by 2030. That means decarbonization by 2030. No more fossils, coal, natural gas. And a major reduction in pollution from the transportation sector. So next slide. We did want to give just a few updates. The video you watched is over a year old, and in the meantime, CEJA has evolved in some important ways. One of the biggest changes that I think comes to mind is when actually this summer, when George Floyd was murdered, the coalition came together and said, okay, well, what are we doing here, and what can we do? You know, like if there was no legislative session, we had a chance to sit down and really look at the bill again. Can we do more? It's always been an equity focused bill, but can it be even more equity focused? Can we put in a new program? Can we do something better? And a number of things kind of came out of that. Things like reworking our equity point system, which will help to sort of determine who gets how bids for renewable energy projects work. We worked on a new clean energy BIPOC, which stands for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color, Primes Contractor Accelerator. This is something that we were hearing from Black and Brown partners in the coalition, saying, you know, we need to have a way to get contractors, not just subcontractors, but Black-owned prime contractors, general contractors, the people who run the whole project, who are hiring the subcontractors. We need to get a way to that we can accelerate them into a position where they're ready to compete, where they have access to capital that they need in order to really, you know, be competitive in this environment to kind of offset the historic and continual sort of harms and injustices that have been happening. So we created the BIPOC Contractor Accelerator, Returning Residents Program, which is a way for folks who are incarcerated to be trained for solar jobs so that they have a path into the clean energy economy when they leave prison. So that's just a few of the things. I don't know, Jessica, if you want to talk about a few of the other ones.
Sure. We also worked on a Clean Energy Jobs and Justice Fund Act that works similar to Green Bank funds that exist in other states. So that would help fund the projects initiated by the Prime Contractor Accelerator and just make sure that people have access to the funding that they need for projects. So in addition to the Pay As You Save program, which Andrew Barbeau mentioned, this would really help make sure that that we are building wealth and energy sovereignty in BIPOC and environmental justice communities. We also introduced the Electric Vehicle Charging Act, which is a bill introduced by Representative Gable. This guarantees the right to charge your vehicle, whether you live in a condo or an apartment building. It sets forth clear legal responsibilities for how many spaces must be EV ready during a renovation or new construction. And it also provides the legal layout for your HOA and your landlord so that it's just clear and it makes EVs more readily adoptable for people. We also included the Stretch Energy Code, which Andrew Barbeau said that the cheapest energy that we use is not to use it. This is really important, and the Stretch Energy Code will allow municipalities and counties to adopt an energy code that speeds up the adoption of energy efficiency programs. So it goes above and beyond the International Building Code, and it makes buildings more efficient. So we've done all of that. There's a lot more in there, but these are the top level updates that we've done. And can you go to the next slide, Bill? Oh, we also did a poll back in May. We did a statewide poll from May 18th to the 21st of Illinois residents, and 82% of Illinois residents support CEJA. I don't think you could get 82% of people to agree that the sky is blue, but 82% of people support CEJA. And we can go to the next slide. I've broken it down a little bit. So across party lines, 98% of Democrats, 84% of independents, and 58% of Republicans support this bill. You can see there's wide support in Chicago and throughout the state. And it goes across all demographics, and even in labor households, which were previously kind of on the fence about moving toward renewable energy, we have their support as well. And I was just looking around and I saw that we also did a poll in Senate Districts 17, 14, and 4. So that's the west side of Chicago, south suburbs, west suburbs. It's Senator Elgie Sims, Jones, and Lightford. So we did a poll in October and we found that more than 70% of those residents also supported CEJA. So this bill has wide support. Everyone's really excited about it. And I think we can move on to the Q&A now. I see that I've been seeing some stuff pop up in the chat here if we want to go through. How does this fit in? So Jane says, how does this fit into the major losses for Illinois with the impact of the virus and potentially the fair tax not passing? Andrew, you've worked a lot in how the bill is funded. Did you want to talk a little bit about how we are funding our programs?
Yeah, so the part of the bill that I've worked on is funding itself. So part of our just transition is a pollution fee, and that pollution fee goes on the power plants, the fossil fuel power plants. There'll also be a coal severance tax. So we're funding our just transition with a fee on polluters. So that fee, that money that we pull out of the polluters as they're winding down, will then go back into the communities in order to support them. It'll also help fund the programs, a lot of the equity programs, the workforce programs that we've talked about. So that sort of side of CEJA is a self-contained bubble that is funded on its own. So how will the virus potentially impact that? We have taken a look at reduced mining rates, seen how that affects the amount of money that we can get. We've looked at some of how power plants, which we will eventually shut down, but what their production levels are, and the money adds up to fund our programs through 2035, which is a long time to fund some programs, 15 years. So that side of the bill looks good. On the other side of things, we get into some of the capacity market reform, things that go beyond my complete understanding. But I believe the idea is that the savings that we're going to be generating by getting around the capacity market is going to be what helps fund the costs of other parts of the bill.
Like electrification, that's funded through, some of this bill is funded through things that you're already paying for. You see all of the line items on your bill, you're already paying for energy efficiency programs. We are changing how those programs look and how they're focused. You're already paying for electrification programs. We are just saying, hey, public utilities, we want you to put in charging stations in this way. So the bill ultimately isn't going to raise rates for ratepayers. It's paid for by itself. And as Andrew said, like the capacity market reform or another mechanism where we take control of our energy markets is expected to fund most of the programs as well.
So you're not going to be looking to the state to fund a lot of this right now?
Not a lot of it. The state's going to have to fund some of it because we are calling for new staff to be brought on in DCEO and at the EPA. But the governor released his 8 principles for clean energy in Illinois, and he agrees with us that he needs to expand his staff in those areas as well. And so really that would be the only thing that would come out of capital funding, is having a little bit more staff in these roles to facilitate that these programs are properly administered.
Well, it's going to be a major issue coming up this year because, in fact, we're desperately in the hole. The budget he put out is not viable anymore. And, if the fair tax doesn't pass, we won't have any money to fill in the holes that have developed as a part of this. So I think it's wonderful, the idea of this moving forward. It's just the money that, it's not going to be there this year.
Yeah,
if we don't do something on clean energy in Illinois, we're in the last decade to fight climate change, and we'll be in a much worse situation.
Understand, and I agree with everything you presented. I'm looking at the finances.
Yeah, but the bill, even before the pandemic, was written in a way that we didn't want ratepayers to have to pay any more money, or taxpayers. So it's not intended to be leaning on either of those sources, the capacity market through savings in the capacity market and through the pollution fee.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think there's also a little bit of cost shifting too that goes on when you have savings, when you refit buildings or decrease the oils and gases used. You're also doing savings, particularly for state buildings. So there's a little bit of that. So another question is, do you know how CPACE in DuPage County is doing? This is funding for commercial buildings to retrofit to efficiency and solar. I'm not familiar with CPACE, but
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that. Sorry.
Jessica? No?
Catherine,
No,
this past year, they had some funding and it met with the electrical unions and it was very well received. I guess I just need to do some research on my own. Thank you.
Yeah, it sounds kind of specific to county, but
Yeah, I don't think Jess or I are the energy efficiency experts. I imagine if one of the energy efficiency experts in the coalition were on, they might have a better answer there, but it just, I think, isn't within.
Yeah.
Thank you.
so this is a good one. With high public support, why is this bill getting such lackluster support in the legislature?
well, I think that it is getting significant support in the legislature. We have over 50 co-sponsors. It's well received. It's just a matter of getting there. We've been doing these working groups with, there's a lot of clean energy bills out there right now, and we all have a different idea on how to achieve the same goal. And so there's been governor's working group meetings. The governor has come out with his 8 principles. Labor, Climate Jobs Coalition just came out with their proposals. So we're all trying to work together to try to make it fit together to do the most comprehensive energy legislation. This is also a really large bill. It's 937 pages in its current iteration. And sometimes that can be really intimidating as far as passing things in the legislature, but we're working on it. We had a very strange legislative session this year, and we're not sure if it's going to come up in veto. We're hoping. We're doing a lobby day coming up. I can send along some information on that, or if it's going to happen in a lame duck session, or if it's going to wait until the spring. But we're all working towards it, and it is one of the governor's top priorities. So it's not that it has lackluster support. It's that we want to make sure we do the right thing, and the most comprehensive legislation gets passed, which is CEJA.
And just speaking to the just transition side of things, there's complications of the communities that have power plants in them kind of don't want to hear that the power plant has to close. That's their livelihoods, totally understandable. And that's a big reason why in CEJA we are focused on just transition. We have a number of packages to support workers and communities in power plants, with power plants and with coal mines, so that when we do make them transition, and they'll transition eventually either way. Actually, since this video was put together, Vistra has announced the closure dates for all of their power plants. So they're all going away. And besides the goodwill of Vistra is the owner of a lot of coal-fired power plants in Illinois. Unless we want to just rely on their goodwill, we have no programs or policies in place to support communities that lose power plant. So CEJA would make the difference there. But those communities, and we talk to people there, they don't know what to do. They're in a bad spot, and they hear a company that says, oh, we'll give you this. Maybe we'll build a solar farm here. Maybe we'll put battery storage. Sign on to our bill. They have those communities sort of stuck in a way. And I can just see that those people don't know what to do, and they're trying to think about their future. So we've done a real honest effort here to propose a bill that would support those communities going forward. But it's tough, and the legislators in those districts hear that, and they don't know what to do because their constituents are confused and don't know what to do because it's a really complicated problem.
Mm-hmm. So one area that I was really intrigued with this bill and through the numerous calls that we've been on is the returning citizens, because I also work on the criminal justice reform and update, and there's something like 30,000 people that are released every year out of prison and go back to their communities. So can either one of you expand a little bit more on that?
Sure. So the Returning Citizens Program is it's for individuals who are in their last year of incarceration, and it's a program that develops wraparound services. They will receive case management services that help them develop soft skills for employment that many people are lacking. They get services on how to seek mental health treatment when they get out, and they also are part of the Clean Jobs curriculum. So the training that they'll receive is the same as the people in the workforce hubs who are not incarcerated are receiving. They will have access to the pipeline that ensures that they will have a job when they're done. And they'll also have the additional supports when they're released and get a job, like follow-up case management, follow-up mental health treatment, to ensure that they can maintain employment.
Yeah, I think it's very creative and really needed. And we spend you talk about money spent in the state, the loads and loads of thousands of dollars that we spend for 1 year for one inmate is incredible. So there is a little bit of, there could be savings on that end to pay for other beneficial things. So somebody is asking, you know, what is this chance that CEJA would come up at the November veto session? I know we've had a lot of questions about that, but your crystal ball, is it any better?
No, I mean, nobody knows. I've been to like 10 different legislator town halls this month, and there's some question that, yeah, maybe, or maybe not. We're hopeful that it comes up. We don't think that this can wait. We really think that it needs to move forward now. We are, like I said, we're planning a lobby day where constituents meet with their representatives and senators and really push to get something done. But I'm not sure. Veto session is very short. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot on the agenda because we've had such a bizarre year and a really hard year, and there's a lot of things that need to be worked through. So
the only thing I'll say is that the governor has been convening these stakeholder working groups for the past few weeks, and they actually just wrapped up, and they put out a statement about their 8 principles of here's what we see for clean energy. This is what, you know, we see as in a clean energy legislation. So it's possible that the governor comes out with a proposal. And I will say a lot of those principles aligned with CEJA. A lot of those principles were lifted from CEJA. A lot of the words, like, for example, displaced energy worker Bill of Rights, that doesn't really, they definitely took that right out of our bill. And some don't, but they had these working group meetings, and we had a chance to talk about it. And we came forward really with the only group in the room that has serious comprehensive plan, that had done the work, that had the language out there ready to go. So if I was in the governor's office and I was figuring out how to write a bill between now and veto session, I'd be looking to CEJA as the guiding force. So it could mean that the governor comes out with a bill that looks a lot like CEJA and says we want to have this happen in veto. Then maybe things start moving and we get into negotiations and things like that. Or it could be, as Jess noted, there's also a lame duck in January, which could be an opportunity. So only a few months away from that, that could really shape. Could be another really big opportunity for us to move this forward.
Great. So here's another one too, and I have been on many of these calls too, but there are other clean energy bills that have been suggested and presented to the governor and the workings group. Can either one of you speak to some of the differences of some of those bills?
CEJA is the most comprehensive bill. We're top down. We're the most equity focused bill. Some of the other bills are very focused on only 1 or 2 areas of clean energy economy, like solar and RPS expansion, and leave out the role that transportation plays. So we have the most comprehensive and most equity-based bills. You'll see that some of the other bills have been introducing equity principles, which are aligned with those in ours, but we have since expanded those original principles, and it's CEJA is now on the website. The current version of CEJA, after Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, all those additions we discussed is currently available. So CEJA is the most comprehensive bill, and it gets us there in all of the ways.
Mm-hmm. Somebody else is asking, basically, how does it shut down the coal plants? Although we definitely are seeing plants shutting down on their own, but can you lead our audience through that a little bit?
Yeah, so often the sort of the popular thing that gets a lot of attention right now is using carbon pricing as a way to shut down coal plants. That's not what the bill does. So we heard from environmental justice communities across Illinois that when you start trading carbon, the people who lose are the people who live near the worst polluting plants. So we take a regulatory approach to decarbonization. We instruct the Illinois EPA to assign declining pollution caps to all fossil fuel power plants in the state. Those caps decline to 0 by 2030. They can decline on separate schedules so that we can have them decline faster in the worst polluters, slower on the less worst polluters. But it happens entirely through that regulatory framework, so that forces it down. We have a mandatory sort of statewide minimum of progress that needs to be made each year so that we know our decarbonization is happening steadily as we approach 2030. And by 2030, they all got to go. And those caps are caps on pollution. So caps on CO2, caps on co-pollutants, like things like NOx and other things, the things that are really impacting people next to the plant.
Mm-hmm.
CO2 is impacting the entire globe. We want caps on both what's impacting the globe and what's impacting the people who live next door. And that's, I just linked the bill text in the chat. To be honest, like the decarb part is somewhat easy to understand. It's maybe like 10, 15 pages and you can read through it and get a lot of it. I think it starts it's right near the end on like page 800 something. I'll look it up once I stop talking. But really, I recommend you just take a look because I was showing it to my boss the other day and he's like, wow, I can just like read this. It's like, we talk about it a lot and you're like, oh, what's going on? But it's plain language in many ways. So
Right.
yeah.
One thing about this bill too, as everybody has mentioned, it is very large. It is very comprehensive, but there also is a table of contents that you can look through if you want to pick out the section you want to read or get familiar with.
There's also fact sheets on the website that break it down really top level, like what is energy efficiency, what's in the bill about energy efficiency, and how is it paid for. I recommend taking a look at those if you have any questions about that.
Okay, yeah, somebody was asking for kind of a recap of the comparison as Jess is discussing. I'm not exactly sure where that's going.
I think there might be a document out there that we can follow up with where somebody's kind of done a chart and put all the other bills that are out there right now. By name, there is Path to 100, which is sort of the solar industry's, it's just about the solar industry. So it doesn't really, again, not as comprehensive as CEJA. There's Vistra's Bail Us Out. It's called Coal to Solar. Give us a bunch of money and I guess we'll build some solar panels on these power plant properties. And that will, I guess, trickle down to the communities who might have jobs in those, at those power plants. Well, we do the same thing by just having other, anybody can build a solar. It doesn't have to be Vistra. We also support the communities with direct payments. So those are the two that come to mind for me as sort of the direct competitors. Groups like Labor don't have a bill. They participate in the conversations, but they're not proposing language. And is there anything else out there that is a bill really?
There's an Exelon and Ameren proposal. I put
That's
the
right.
Ameren ones in there. But none of them are as comprehensive, and all of them are, the utility bills benefit the utilities.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There's one comment here that the links won't open without access.
I just fixed it.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. So any other questions? Otherwise, we're going to wrap up. About an hour on Zoom is about it, right? Okay. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for attending. I know there have been loads and loads of questions on CEJA. Is the league supporting it? We do have a position from the federal level to support carbon emissions, and this is Illinois' action to get that done, and also for equity in protecting communities. So it really is a very good comprehensive bill that we can all get behind. So I would encourage everyone to sign up for the lobby day, the virtual lobby day, which will be November 12th. And if you want more information, you can go to the IllinoisCleanJobs.org website and you can look up the bill. Remember, it does have a table of contents and you can pick out certain sections. And also, if you do have more questions, you certainly can reach out to Bill or myself or League of Women Voters Illinois Issues at the link there, and leave a message for us that'll get to us too. So thank you, everybody. And thanks for being involved. Have a great day.